So we're continuing to see a crazy amount of backlog. We're seeing mandatory overtime and just workers burning out left, right, and center. Many agencies, some of them you probably already thought of. VA, yeah. SSA, definitely happening over there. But there's one agency I want to focus on specifically, and that's the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the DHS, the administration loves the DHS. That's like the spear tip of immigration enforcement. But they do more than that. One of the things they do is they process asylum claims. You know what the backlog is right now? Over 200,000 cases backlog. There's a little over 1,000 workers. They don't want to hire anymore. You go to usajobs.gov, they don't want to hire. Now, you might have been told that the hiring freeze has been lifted. A lot of people say that. But if you look at the executive order that came out, it's essentially the same thing. It's pretty much frozen for a lot of positions in a lot of agencies. Because there's so many more hoops you have to jump through in order to get the right people in the right positions within your agency. Now, the guidance to solve this problem, because it's a big problem, the guidance coming out is, this is the way that you do it, okay? You just reject them. Just start rejecting the majority of the claims, and then the backlog will decrease. The focus is not on asylum. Not in 2025, not next year, not for the next few years. The focus is on immigration enforcement. And that's why a lot of those individuals have been moving over to focus more on the enforcement side. These officers, they're still working overtime though, and the overtime has cost the agency over $15 million. This is mandatory overtime. This isn't like, hey, you got anything going on next weekend? Because we sure love to have you come into the office. No, this is mandatory. Regardless of what you have in your life planned out, they need you and you will report in. There was an OIG report that recently came out in the Department of Homeland Security, and it showed a segment of the staff was reporting PTSD. Around 30% of the people said they had PTSD from graphical testimonies, from being chronically overworked, from not being supported within their agency. Instead of supported, they're being reassigned. They're being refocused, the opposite of being supported. So the focus now is more of the kinetic activities, more of the interdiction, the catching of drugs, the catching of human trafficking, the launching attacks on boats in the Caribbean Sea. That's what takes up the focus. That's what's important, not necessarily any of this. Now, one of the main components included in the hiring freeze that we saw this year, it said agencies will not use contractors to supplement federal workers. Because you know, all throughout this year, federal workers were squeezed out of agencies. They were squeezed out of the government. Over 300,000, many of them. And that'll continue to happen when we get into 2026 and onward. One of the main things was, hey, agencies cannot do this. What is DHS doing? They're doing exactly that. They're hiring more contractors. And it's not permanent contractors, which you could say, well, at least they'll be there for a while. No, it's temporary contractors. So that's how they're getting around hiring asylum officers. They're relying on temporary contractors where you're not able to sustain the momentum. You're not able to build and keep institutional knowledge because these people are, it's like a revolving door. They're not staying for a long period of time. They're there to get a few checks and they're going to jump to a different industry, a different sector, do something completely different. So why even mention that type of language? You will not hire contractors to supplement federal workers. The reason for that is because a lot of people would attack the administration for doing just that. We've seen how this story unfolds. Every time there's a hiring freeze, every time there is an effort to downsize the federal government, and you can look at what President Clinton did, you can look at President Reagan, every time those efforts were made, it was met with a surge in contractors. So much so that right now there's over 2 contractors for every 1 federal worker. But nobody likes to talk about the contractors. It doesn't make headlines. There's no politician in Congress right now that are railing against the contractors. Why would they? Those same contracting companies, they finance a lot of political campaigns. Why would they be against the contractors? But it's the same tax dollars. You understand that, right? You pay a GS-11 or you pay a contracting company. The money keeps going out. And you can say, well, yeah, a federal worker, you have to pay them a pension and benefits. But the amount of money you're paying a contracting company is not going straight to the contractor. There's a lot of overhead. The company just keeps its profit. So yeah, they might pay a $200,000 a year salary for an IT worker, but in reality, the government paid $500,000 that year for that same worker. So it's the same taxpayer dollar being spent, but there's no political appetite to talk about that. So this reinforces a very familiar pattern that we've seen in the past, and we definitely seen this year. And that comes to reactive workforce management. It's not proactive. It's let's see what breaks. Who's complaining about what? Where's our pain point coming from? And then we'll just react. And we'll react. And it's for that reason right now we have 1 in 5 operational positions in DHS vacant. There's nobody there. And it matches very similar to what's happening in the Department of Labor. Department of Labor, you have grant reviewers, unemployment investigators. They're facing a very similar burnout cycle. They need people over there too. You know what? Department of Labor is not hiring. Not this week. Maybe next month, but definitely not this week. They're not hiring anybody. So this adds to the list of the agencies that are under pressure. And there doesn't seem to be any relief in sight. Next year, federal agencies will need skilled and talented professionals. The question is, are they going to be allowed to hire? And the bigger question after that is, will there be talented people to answer the call? Because it seems like right now, the overwhelming message is, we don't want you in the federal workforce. And the latest data here in OIG is showing that people are leaving at alarming rates. Younger asylum officers, they're leaving within 18 months. What is that? You're not even fully settled into your role in 18 months. You need at least 2 years before you even feel comfortable in that position. A lot of people worry about this when they accept a new job. They're like, how long will it take? Will they understand that I'm new? Will they be lenient when I mess up? And the answer is usually, yes, they will. Most people understand it takes 2 years. You have to learn the acronyms, the hierarchy, who's who in the zoo. You got to learn all of that stuff, the systems, the SOPs, the policy letters. It takes a while to assimilate into that new workplace culture, that new workplace environment. 18 months? What are we talking? You're leaving after 18 months? That means something was wrong. Something was wrong there for a young worker to leave after 18 months. In addition to this, we also have a problem at the Department of Defense, the absolute largest federal agency in the government. And their problem comes when you're looking at the federal wage system, when you're looking at trade jobs like plumber, electrician, welder, jobs like that. The pay isn't matching the local area. The pay should match the local area, and it's not. Instead, it's tied up with the GS pay raise, right? It has to be an average of the GS pay raise. It's really holding a lot of people back. And it's another reason, another great excuse that you can use, that we have to hire contractors because nobody wants to be a federal worker, which isn't true. You just got to pay people their value, whatever value they bring in. Like if a plumber makes $35 an hour in your area, the government worker should be able to match somewhere near that. Anyway, if you want to know more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.